I don't know why I used NSYNC as a reference, but I'll stick with it. Like, it's not to say that I don't like NSYNC songs. Like, if we go to karaoke bar, I'll rip some NSYNC or something like that. But
Absolutely.
All right, this next song goes out to the guy who keeps yelling from the balcony. It's called We Hate You, Please Die.
Sweet. Now it decides to work. And
that's good.
Classic N64, turn it off and turn it back on, and
Yeah,
that's totally fine.
Whatever works. Yeah.
All right. Well, without further ado, thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. This is another episode of the Scoped Exposure podcast. I am beyond excited to be welcoming a riff god from the LA area, Martine from Terror, Like It or Not. Honestly, so many bands. Your discogs was like a little overwhelming of like, whoa, there's so much shit here to chew on. But
it's funny you mentioned that, because someone yesterday sent me a screenshot of my page, and the photo that was used is like, it's like super insane. And then we were like, it was in a group chat when I was like making fun of myself or whatever. And then I noticed that some bands aren't even listed on there yet. So I have to I'm going to have to go in there,
do some homework.
and add some stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, that's only been something that I've started implementing a little bit more when it comes to guest research for the show. Like, cause it for the most part, like, kind of showcases everything, especially for people who have been doing music for a long, long time. But yeah, like, one of the first questions I was like, have you been there recently? Because the artist picture, if anything, is commendable for sure.
Yeah, I distinctly remember taking that picture too. I was in Europe, touring with King Nine, playing guitar.
Mm-hmm.
And after like a long trip of like flying over there, and I had one of those stupid neck pillows that you see people use, and I was just like messing around, doing a funny face, and took a photo. And then somehow, I mean, that was like a personal photo that was like just amongst our friends, and somehow it made it out into the world. I'm not, I think it's hilarious.
It's so close up that I thought it was some kind of like life preserver, like you were gonna go swimming with dolphins or something, but it was just one of those insane neck pillows.
Just a super fancy neck pillow that I bought at the airport one time.
Do you still have it?
No, I've had about 4 or 5 of those things, because I buy them and then I use them, and they're the best thing ever for long flights, and then I always end up leaving them somewhere. I lose them always. So all of them I end up buying at the airport. I'm like, shit, I don't have a neck pillow. And
like, I've been doing this thing for a long time, and I can't seem to keep a neck pillow in the regular circulation of things that I carry on me.
Definitely.
Yeah. Well, I really appreciate you giving me some of your time. I'm really excited to be chatting about some, terror stuff, some vocals and Like It or Not, and some other things as well. If there's any, if you want to just run through some of the current bands and projects that you're currently involved in, just so I didn't, just so I didn't miss any beats there.
Yeah. So like you said, terror is like my number one thing that takes precedence over everything, and constantly busy doing a lot of stuff. And then you mentioned Like It or Not. I mean, that's like it's a funny one for me. It started a long time ago as kind of, I guess it could call it a joke, but not really a joke, just something more for fun.
Sure.
Just to kind of let loose and be a little less serious about things. And then it ended up lasting forever, and it's still kind of happening every now and then, but it's definitely like way on the back burner. Something that doesn't happen that often. And then lately, King Nine is one that I don't record with them or anything like that, but I do play a lot of shows live with them, and they're semi-active. So I end up, I was able to go to Europe with them and do a lot of flying across the country and playing with them, which is amazing. And Criminal Instinct is another one that I do like record with them. And another band that's kind of like, everyone playing in the band has a lot of other things going on.
Yes,
and they don't even live in the same place. Yeah, so it happens when it can. It's definitely not a full-time band. And same goes for God's Hate is a band that I've been playing with lately, who just released a new record that's like, in my opinion,
fucking on, dude. It's insane.
Yeah, it's really, I rate it a 10 out of 10. I find myself listening to it a lot, and like, it's a really cool record. And unfortunately it came out, within the last several months or whatever. So it's like, it came out in the middle of a time where shows aren't happening. And so the band hasn't really had the chance to do anything, but now I know you're in Canada, right?
Yeah, in Calgary.
You're in Calgary. Okay. Yeah, so yeah, I know that Canada has a lot different protocols right now, and the country's not as open as it is in some places here, but like LA just opened basically at like 90% or something like that. So shows have been happening, but like shows are now happening legally, I guess you could say. So right. So I would say that something would happen soon for God's Sake, because there still hasn't been a record release show or anything like that. So
right.
And then so man, what else?
So many.
I've been playing I switch back and forth between bass and guitar for a band called XIBALBA, and it's like all these same situations where it's a bunch of guys that have, the grown-ups have lives and have a lot of other stuff going on, and so the activity of the band is sort of limited, which is like perfect for my situation. So we play when we can. We're actually about to play a show in LA this coming Sunday.
Yeah,
so it'll be like,
that's the one with no, because was XIBALBA on the one with Gulch and Drain and Tsunami and then jumped off?
So
or am I thinking of something different?
That show is happening, but that's just not the LA show. That show is up north in I think it's San Jose, which is like the area where Gulch and Tsunami and Drain
all the Bay bands.
Yeah. So that is the Saturday show, but then we come down and play a proper LA show on Sunday, and that's actually going to be the record release show for XIBALBA's last record,
which came out like way back. Yeah,
it came out. Yeah, but it's like Nate, who sings in the band, is like, he's probably the busiest person that I know aside from myself.
Sure.
And he's like always out on the road and just living a crazy life and doing a lot of projects and booking shows and blah, blah, blah. So I think that XIBALBA kind of took a backseat for a little bit just because of his schedule. And and then now, the last year and a half, he hasn't been on tour or anything. So everyone's home right now, and think, the ability to play a live show in Los Angeles is there. So it's going to happen this Sunday with a band called Skeletal Remains, which is like a more modern kind of death metal.
Cool.
I guess I compare them to like Obituary or something, but they're from they're from my neighborhood in Whittier, and they're amazing. So they're gonna play the show. They put a new record out recently, and then Section Hate, which is another Los Angeles band, LA hardcore band, and a newer band called Beverage from LA that I think they started and put a demo out in the middle of the pandemic. And so, it's going to be awesome.
Yeah. So like 5 minutes later, we've listed all the active bands that you've been playing in.
That might be. I'm probably forgetting something, but yeah.
Yeah. Staying very busy though, which is super, super sick to see. And it's always, it's funny because it's like, like it or not, like you were saying, was that like, we do this for fun. It's really, really on the back burner, but like all those projects that you were listing, a lot of those are like headliner festival level acts, in my opinion, like could just draw a number of people to, so to be, have your hands in so many pots is really cool to see. And, it must be a constant balancing act of like, okay, well, all these bands are sick.
It is. Yeah, it really is. And like, I guess when shows are happening, it just depends on who I speak to first, or what shows get booked first or something.
Yeah, it's a first come, first serve basis.
Yeah. So it gets crazy sometimes, but it's no complaints whatsoever. It's like I love hardcore, and I love music in general also, and playing live shows. So it's like it's just all there for me.
Yeah,
At
definitely.
all times, pretty much. Yeah.
So, before we get super deep into the music chats, we got to check some bevs before we get into the, that portion of the conversation. So it's tradition for the guests to go first. So I'm kind of curious on
Okay.
what you brought to the show here, and premiere it for us.
All right, here we go. So it's Monster Energy drink.
Dude, what
And,
is that?
Yeah. So this is I specifically chose this one. It has a cool story behind it because so the flavor, I guess it would be the flavor or whatever. It's called Assault. I don't know if wait. Assault.
No blueberry,
So-
passion fruit, whatever. Just Assault.
No. Just Assault in the camouflage can. So
That's
I don't
wild.
know. I don't know when I first tried this one, but it was like it has kind of like a cherry Coke flavor, and it's like I don't know.
Okay.
It's very intense. Like when I need like a real energy boost or whatever. Because
Sure.
normally I'll just drink like a iced latte or something from Starbucks or whatever, something generic like that. But I'll have these when I really need it. And then like I started noticing that slowly but surely it was harder to find in the stores. And then through a contact at Monster, because Terror works with Monster, like we know a guy that works for them, and he's like amazing, and he helps us out a lot. Is like incredible. They do a lot for us, surprisingly, which you wouldn't. I don't know. Most people wouldn't think of that relationship happening, but
Sure.
yeah. So anyways, I asked him, and he was like, "Yeah, they're discontinuing it." So it was discontinued for a while, and then they just brought it back with like a new formula or whatever. And so the guy sent me a case of it. So I'm like,
Let's go.
This is
Very sick.
this is the new formula, and it's I guess it's cherry Coke. I think that's would be the flavor or whatever. Yeah.
But it's one thing to call a flavored cherry Coke, and just another to call it Assault and have people figure it out on their own.
Yeah, Assault with the camouflage can is much more appealing than
Sure.
cherry
So
cola.
is it safe to say that Monster is a bev sponsor of Terror?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't. You know what? I don't really know how it works in the U.S. because our relationship is mostly with the European music division.
Sure.
And man, when you go there, especially in the summer for like festivals and stuff like this, like they're there. They have like this huge presence amongst like aggressive, I guess, music and like metal bands and whatever, a lot of hardcore bands, and they really like do their part. They help out a lot. They'll help with like booking shows and like putting forth money for events to happen, and
Totally.
just a lot of things. Yeah. So it's kind of crazy.
So
they've helped us a lot.
The question is big to ask: if there was a Terror and Monster collab drink, and you had the creative decision power for all that, what would be the move there?
I mean, I guess I would just repackage this one. I would keep the camo and just, I don't know, come up with a clever name. Keep the camo and the flavor, and then just call it something else. And just be like, this is it.
You're like, there's no way that you're gonna discontinue this again because now it's our drink.
Right. Now it belongs to us.
Yeah, I'm trying to think if there's like a Terror song with some lyric that says Assault or something that you can pull from, but
I'm sure there is. There probably is. Yeah,
ask Scott. I think that's really, really cool. And again, like, I'm not sure how much you kind of saw the show or listened to the show before, but like bevs are like a big passion of mine, and a big goal of mine for season 2 was having bev sponsors of our own. So I'm going to be checking Say When, which is our one of our sponsors out in Vancouver. So this is like a chai mix. But it's like a dirty chai, so it's got like nodes of coffee and things like that. So on like,
does it have actual caffeine? It has like espresso in it.
Absolutely.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah. So it's this is me just reading the back of it, but it's featuring organic coffee, spiced chai, and a touch of warm cocoa. So what's awesome is that I can literally make this hot or cold with you on the Zoom call, like within like a couple seconds. So just do
You're speaking my language. I love this.
Yeah. So in the summer months, I normally do this over iced. But like into the winter months, I'll do the others. So that's what I'm going to be rocking.
Yeah. I'm gonna need to try that. I don't know if I can get that in the US, but
You can definitely get it in the US, and I'll hook you up with our coupon code to get a discount.
Okay, perfect. Because I used to my entire life I hated coffee, and the one thing that got me to understand the flavor was a close friend of mine turned me on to the dirty chai.
Let's go.
And
Okay.
yeah. So yeah. So that's what it started at Starbucks. You know, it was like I would never get coffee then. Then I would go to Starbucks and get like this, you know, an iced dirty chai. And I started small because espresso like makes me want to jump through a window. And then now I'm able to do like a big boy and have like a few shots of espresso in a drink. Yeah. And then with the chai mix and with oat milk is like when you add the oat milk, it's like a milkshake or something almost. It's so incredible.
Yeah, because I found these guys when I was just at like a organic grocery store, and I reached out to them, and it was like one of those things where even if they said no, like I would still check it on a regular basis. Like it's just that good.
Yeah.
And, you know,
that's amazing.
It's funny because like our other Bev sponsor is a brewery here in Calgary that like definitely leans more on that like metal aesthetic and things like that. And like that is not the demographic that these guys at least have right now. So it's like it's always funny when I see them reshare stuff. It's like, this nice like cutesy little display of some latte, and then it's me just like slugging it down with like some major metalhead. So no,
the reality of caffeinated beverages is just very extreme.
Yeah, but after the call, I'll get you set up and we'll get some to you. And
perfect. Yeah, hell yeah, I'm pumped.
Cheers to you, my guy. I think we got cheers. 2 great bevs for a great conversation here. Yeah, I love the plug that you guys have a hookup with Monster, because I like it's a no-brainer. Like I don't know if any of the visual listeners were saw. I always have a Liquid Death on hand as well, just for hydration. But like I think more bands should do like drink collabs with breweries or like different energy drink companies. Like I think there's an untapped market there.
Yeah, and I have a funny story about that.
Yeah, please.
So the people, I feel like, I don't know, sometimes they're not ready for that sort of thing. Like they feel like it's I don't know, disingenuous or something. I'm not really sure how to explain it, but a while ago, years ago, a friend of ours in Germany, she was a girl who would like come on tour with us and sell merch and stuff out in Europe. And I'm not sure how she did it, but she must have like found this energy drink company that would allow you to do these like small custom orders of custom wrapped energy drink cans, And so she designed this wrap for it was only like a 12 pack of cans, of like just some generic flavor or whatever. And she made it look like a Terror energy drink and gave it to us. She gave it to us as a gift. And we were like, oh man, this is hilarious and crazy. So we had a picture of it and we posted it on Instagram. And the amount of like, it like touched a nerve on people and they were upset about it. They were like commenting on it, like, the typical stuff, calling us sellouts or whatever, or like just like saying this
corporatizing hardcore, blah, blah.
And it's like that kind of thing. We see it and it's just kind of like, okay, whatever, just kind of brush it off. Like, I understand you have your feelings are hurt, and like, but if they just only knew that it was just a joke that, a friend of ours gave us as a gift, and it wasn't that big of a deal. So but it did, like, it made me start thinking like, man, like what if it were real? Would it be that big of a deal? Like people wouldn't be able to comprehend that a band, merchandised something that wasn't the typical like, t-shirt or.
Yeah, totally. It's so, like, like I think, a band like, Code Orange that like does all these like collaborations and partnerships with like huge wrestling like entities like that, for someone to be like, oh, like that's so corny, or that's a solid move. I'm like, that is just bringing more people into the space. That's putting more eyes that like probably would have never gone to a hardcore show to be like, oh, like this band's wild, like,
right.
So I think people, trying to put a stake in the ground and like kind of put on their gatekeeping hat for some of that is like you're missing the overall picture of like what's important. Like it's always about growth and putting more eyes that this shit exists. So I don't know. It's crazy what people will get upset over.
And I understand why people have these feelings, because within like this underground music and stuff, people kind of, you develop this feeling of an ownership over the bands and such, and they don't want to see it leave their hands into the hands of someone else. So it's like, I think there's it's kind of a gray area with stuff like that, where it's, you know, you mentioned the Code Orange thing, and they kind of mixed in with wrestling, and that's not because some outside source was like, we're gonna mash you guys up and it's gonna be huge. It was like it came from like their genuine love for sports entertainment and wrestling. And it was just like a natural move for them. They just got lucky to be able to get connected into such a big world. So to me, I was like, oh, that's cool, you know, and I'm sure there's going to be people that are upset about it and stuff, but that goes with anything that any band ever does. There's always going to be someone upset about something, or they don't like what someone does or whatever. So yeah, I think it's just, I think there's like, there's a space for that sort of thing, where a natural relationship between two things that just kind of makes sense and then brings two worlds together. It's like the essence of a collaboration is that supposed to be that sort of thing, you know, where you get two things that, you know, from different worlds and kind of mix them together. So
like you know, a band that's, you know, not on the same, I guess, like scale wise, but, you know, definitely has found a, you know, a niche of their own and plays on some of those other subcultures, like you said, from a genuine place, is like Vatican. Like they're like all about being gamers and like supporting gaming culture with the metalcore kind of mix of that. And like if they, you know, one day were like, hey, we're doing a collaboration with like Bethesda Studios or Nintendo or whatever, like I'm sure people would come out of the woodwork to be like, yo, like just write music. But it's like, well, like some kid is going to be on Twitch like playing some game and like find out about that and then go to a festival, and then, you know, like there's such a like a long tail with a lot of these things where I think people quickly forget the breadcrumb trail effect that like certain stuff that we do in hardcore has for people, whether it's like at a show, you just wear that one shirt that someone's like, what band is that?
What is that?
Yeah. What's Slipknot? What's like Madball or whatever it is. And then, you know, it kind of goes down, you know, and like, and I say that so many times because so many, there's been so many instances on the podcast where people are like, I saw this and I was like mesmerized, like, what is that? And then that's what like puts them on the path to, you know, being into heavy music. So
yeah, totally. Yeah. I it's, you know, it's really weird to see how upset people will get over certain things like that, you know, but yeah, like I said, it's like, I do understand where their feelings are coming from, but I think that people usually let the pendulum swing too far in one direction and they kind of overreact, you know, and then it just blows proportion.
Yeah, because I think even like when I was getting into heavy music, like the internet was there, but it wasn't at the scale that it is now. So like you go to the record store and you buy that cool record and you feel like, you know, you discovered gold, like you're Indiana Jones and you're like kind of sitting on that. But like largely like hardcore like music is you know, people like a band could put out a demo and blow up, and then it's like in the hands of so many in overnight. So it is that kind of shift. But yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head where it's anything like that's outside of like what a normal agenda thing for a hardcore band to do, it needs to come from like a good place and a genuine place versus like you know, some big wig in a suit being like, well, what if we did this? Would that make us a lot of money? Versus like, no, this is shit we're actually passionate about outside of music.
Yeah, and I feel that people that truly are genuinely into this subculture, they'll spot the people that are, you know, kind of, I guess, faking it or trying to pull a fast one on everyone by making a move that was not genuine or something, you know. So, you know, even though there's always going to be like this amount of hate that you receive for whatever it is that you do, if you're genuine about it, you're just gonna you're just gonna continue on your path and do your thing and not be thrown off track by it or anything like that. But if it came from a weird place and you were trying to fool the people, and then people are gonna recognize it and probably just tear you apart for it, and then then you'll just, that'll be the end of it, whatever. But
yeah. So all that being said, we've been jumping around, but like I've loved some of the initial just right off the hop tangents that we've hit. But Martine, any new guests that I have on the show, I always like to get a little bit of context about like, their hardcore origin story, how they got into this shit. Like, tell me about the first time that you heard like, some kind of like breakdown, D beat fast part, like however you want to spin it. And because I really believe context matters of like, again, that breadcrumb trail effect on how people discover what this is all about. So tell me about it.
Yeah. So my journey into this whole world that I'm like so ingrained into now is going to be different than a lot of people nowadays, just because I'm a little older. My birthday is next month. I'm turning 40 years old. And so back in the early 90s, we have a station, a local radio station here called K-Rock. I don't know, like how, I think it's everywhere or something, but
sure.
Here back then they used to play kind of like local punk sometimes, like on specific shows. Because before that, it was just like I listened to whatever my parents listened to.
Sure.
And I didn't really have my own music taste just yet, so I grew up on a lot of like jazz and R&B and hip hop and stuff like that, typical stuff for those times. And then me and my brother, he's a couple of years older than me, we heard Bad Religion on the radio.
Oh,
and
cool.
I think it was Stranger Than Fiction. It might have been the first version of Stranger Than Fiction, or I wish I could remember what exact song, but that kind of like, before that, my brother did listen to some rock music that didn't really speak to me. I like it now, but back then he was really into like Poison and stuff like that.
Okay.
And and I just kind of, I don't know. I didn't see it then. I didn't get it then, but
sure.
Now I appreciate that sort of thing. But it was just kind of like a casual listening thing. And then Bad Religion was just for some reason the thing that just like tipped the scales and like really got us interested in something new to us. And it was like a full dive in head first into punk from there. And then being in Los Angeles and all the bands that we have here in LA that are, related to Bad Religion and just the history here with LA punk is like the best there is, Circle Jerks and Black Flag and Adolescents. And so we really got into that sort of thing, and then started going to punk shows. And like our first we used to go to like backyard shows here, which is kind of like the equivalent of basement shows on the East Coast. They're
sure.
Just like a backyard party and with the dirt and people being crazy and stuff. But the first big show that we really went to at a real proper venue was the Showcase Theater, which is kind of a legendary spot in Corona. And it was the Vandals. The Vandals played, and I don't remember who else, but that was like 1990. I think it was 93. And then so seeing it like on that scale and like a proper venue with so many people there, a sold out show, and realizing how much of an effect punk had on the world. And then it was just like, that's really all we cared about. And we became those people that like every week we would make a trip to the record store. There was a lot of good record stores around here, Bionic Records and Vinyl Solutions and stuff like that. And so we would make it a point. Luckily, we had a couple other friends that joined up with us. So go to the record store and everyone kind of buy something, give it a listen, because you don't know what it sounds like before, it's just like, we would literally choose stuff based on what the cover looked like, or like
the name of the band, or
and it was hit or miss. Usually it was good, but a lot of times there was some bad stuff, but you could like sell it back or whatever. And then we just like from there, it's just everyone we just buy the record. And I'm sure everyone's heard this before, you buy the record, check the thanks list, see what other bands they are thanking and they're clicked up with, and then you go find those records and buy those, and just going to every show possible, man. Like my brother had his license at a very young age, because you could get it back then. Like I think he was like 15 and a half. and we were getting a family member gave us a car, like a free little crappy car, and we just
Sure.
ran that thing into the ground, driving all over Southern California, going to shows, even going up north to like Berkeley and stuff like that, just to see any sort of punk or hardcore show. So it just kind of like branched out from there. It's like started with punk, got more aggressive, like into the D beat stuff like that, and like crust punk, and there was a huge local scene for that. And then it just kind of kept getting more and more aggressive. And then there was like crossover bands like Gorilla Biscuits, who I feel like if you hear like the naked ear hears Gorilla Biscuits without knowing anything about what hardcore is, and you listen to punk, you just kind of like lump them in with punk.
Sure.
Because it's kind of melodic and a little happy, it's not Marauder or something like that, so
right.
So we were listening to bands like that, like just kind of assuming it was punk, but then realizing that there was this whole other subdivision of this subculture we were already a part of. And then it was like, and then it just kept getting deeper and deeper. And by the time I was in high school, like a freshman in high school, you couldn't tell me that there was like a better label than Victory Records. Anything Victory Records in the 90s was just like the pinnacle for me. Strife, Earth Crisis, Hatebreed, Bloodlet, everything. So that's like, yeah, we really got into that. And luckily at the time, a lot of those bands were touring out to California. So we got to see some crazy shows in the middle of all that. Yeah. And then it came to the point where it was like, well, we feel what these bands are saying. I understand that we're not a part of the mainstream world. And when you're a teenager then, and I hated mainstream subculture like with a passion. Like it's kind of crazy to see the difference now where mainstream is a little more acceptable with the younger people of today in hardcore music. You see a lot of people like openly love pop music and stuff like that. But I remember being a kid and like that was the devil, like pop music. That. I don't want anything to do with those people. Those people are terrible and blah, blah, blah. It was just like very one track mind at that time, and so we felt we had stuff to say, and that's when we started playing in bands. It was like picked up a guitar just because I felt like I had something to say. It wasn't like, oh, I'm a musician or whatever, so let's start a band. It was like my dad took me to a pawn shop and I got my first bass because I wanted to be in a punk band, because I wanted to be like voice my opinion or whatever. So that was like all of it, and then it just from there it just kind of exploded.
No, man, there's so much to unpack there, but the most recent thing you said, just like wanting to start to be involved because you had something to say, because like again that pushback against like being normal or being like cool like when you're in school, because it was like there's like a decade between us, and I'm not trying to make you feel old or anything, but it's like I'm 28 now, and I kind of felt the same way where like there were so many things that were just like normalized in high school, whether it was like going to parties, getting fucked up, like doing certain things, and I just like always was like listening to like at the time it was like Killswitch Engage and Disturbed and Slipknot, and being like, this is where I feel like I fit in, because when I go to school like I don't feel that. And then it was like when I went to shows, then it's like, oh, okay, like these are the people that I want to be surrounded by, because they get it, they understand,
they get it,
see
like
me for who I am. But like I do think you're right that there's a shift now where people would be like listening to the latest God's Hate record, but being like, oh man, the Shania Twain is the sickest, or like this new Iggy Pop record or whatever it is. And I think that's cool to be able to
totally
have the crossover. But I think that's worth noting that there's definitely been a shift where whether you came through punk or metal or emo or whatever it is, like at the time it was such like a don't talk to me, this is my shit, and now it's like a little bit more like pushed out into the ethos, for sure.
I think that like like you said, having a broad spectrum music taste is incredible. I listen to everything except country music, but but I like a lot of things, and like on my daily listening schedule, I'm not listening to hardcore all day long, but I think the difference is that back then for me, I so now what I feel like nowadays is that people are okay with making the pop culture their identity, whereas like, you know, listen to whatever you want because music is music, but I feel that what I don't know if it's the same for everyone, especially it's always going to change, but what drove us to the underground, which I'll always refer to it as the underground because to me that's what it is. That's how I found it. Um, you're driven there because, like you said, you don't fit in with the rest, and I don't know if other people have that same experience anymore. So I think what happens is like maybe the line got a little blurred between what the underground actually means and like is just made a lot more accessible over the years and such. But so I feel that made people a little, I'm not saying it's wrong or whatever, but it's an observation of mine that people felt a lot more comfortable making the pop culture their identity, like wearing like an NSYNC t-shirt or something where maybe they're doing it as like kind of parody or something like that. But it's just because of my experience with all of this and the time that I grew up going to punk and hardcore shows like that, I could have never done, been that or done something like that. I just like, I'm not saying I don't know why I used NSYNC as a reference, but I'll stick with it. Like, it's not to say that I don't like NSYNC songs. Like, if we go to karaoke bar, I'll rip some NSYNC or something like that. But that's like, but it's also at the same time, it's like it'll never be my identity, and I understand why that sort of like pop culture will never sit right with me because everything about it is just it's anti how I feel about life in general. And so it's like cool, yeah, it exists and like they make some good music, but like stay out of my life, that kind of thing.
And I think like what I was saying before about like bands doing different collabs and people being like, I think it's a net positive. There is like a fine line of that. I don't think it's like I don't think like I'm gonna make a take here. I don't think everyone in the world should be involved in hardcore as like joyous of like an idea if that is where like people could be running through the streets and everyone's wearing a t-shirt like the community that we're a part of is for people that stand against a lot of what you're saying, like a lot of the popular culture that's kind of put into the world. Like you need to wear this, you need to do this, you need to believe this, and like a lot of things that I think the music is kind of the entry point, but when you go to a show and you see these bands, they get on stage and they talk about political issues, they talk about like, trans rights, Islamophobia, like whatever it is, like that's where you can really suss out the people that are like, oh, like I'm just here for the music, if that makes sense. Like, no, these things are tied together. Like you can't like pick and choose. Like you can pick and choose at home, on your computer looking at like, top 10 breakdown videos, but like don't feel like you can become a part of this community if you're not going to like stand with the people against a lot of the, hateful bullshit that that's in our world. And like it's not like people who are fans of NSYNC are like pro a lot of those things, but they might not take as hard a stance against that, if that makes sense.
Right. Yeah, totally. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Yeah. So, I always try to navigate these things properly because I never want to like come off as a negative person. I'm not saying like any of this stuff is like, don't listen to that or don't do that or that, blah, 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 that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I'm not that kind of person. I just, I make these observations and I just think
I think it's as more bands like Terror and Knocked Loose and Code Orange are like again pushing that again the underground world becomes a little bit more seen by the rest of the world, making sure that we keep the reason that it's underground at a certain standard, if that makes sense.
There you go. That's perfect. Yeah.
I know another thing that you were saying, just like starting off with punk, and then like you were saying, there was so many such a legacy of like punk music in LA and California as a whole at the time. Like like was there a certain time where you realized like, oh, like we have it really really good here when it comes to like that kind of music? Or was it just like such not like a smoke and mirrors kind of experience, but you were just like mesmerized, and then it was only later on that you realized like, oh, like the rest of the world doesn't have this?
Yeah, you know what? So I would say I was always aware of how cool I felt like it was here, just because of going to shows here and just the sheer amount of people that would come to shows and like the intensity of punk shows, hardcore shows. Like I always knew that it was great.
Mm-hmm.
And then I guess like appreciation changes once you start to see other places. Not saying that any of those other places are lesser or something like that, but it's just when you see the differences between anywhere from city to city or state to state,
Mm-hmm.
country to country, that's when you really start to notice that, especially when you find, so for example, you'll go on tour and let's say you're in what was that? Is it Kansas? I think there's this venue that I played in somewhere in the Midwest.
Sure.
And like I'm just using this as an example where you go to a place like that and man, the show will be incredible. It's obviously a way smaller scale, and there's like 2 or 3 bands that are really doing everything they can to make shit work.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're just kind of isolated in the middle of nowhere, and it's always gonna be, if not us, who is that's the mentality that I always apply to underground music, hardcore music and stuff. So for them it's just so much more real, because if it really is like there's these 2 or 3 bands, and if they don't do something, then who's gonna do it? Who's gonna book the shows? Who's gonna bring the outside bands to come play there on tour and stuff like that? So when I saw stuff like that, and I appreciate that so much, because it's like they really have to try so much harder than the rest of the world.
Yeah.
Well, not than us, here in LA, where it's like, man, we just have the numbers are here, and like there's bands, just endless amounts of bands, and there's always someone willing to book a show, which is incredible also. So I see both things, and I appreciate both for what they are, but that's when I started to realize, man, like LA is kind of crazy. And you see that in other places like New York or something like that, where it's just like, man, they have the history is there, and it's just like it feels like it's just almost always gonna, the wheels are always in motion there, like no matter what. It's almost like you can't stop it.
Sure.
But then there's those other places, there's cities that used to be popping, like crazy places that you would always stop on a tour, and then as over the years you keep going there and you kind of see the decline in numbers, and like because maybe a new band didn't start, and then the one band that booked everything, they got older and got married and had kids or whatever, and kind of stopped caring or whatever, and then you'll see it just kind of dwindle, because they're we're all in charge of this ourselves, so
yeah. I think like I think the visual that I always think about is like those like not escalators that go diagonally, but like at the airport, like there's just like the people movers. Exactly. But like the thing is, I think with anything in life, if you just stand still, like life is gonna go on and it's just gonna keep pushing you back. So you almost have to like walking will kind of push you forward a little bit, but like I think it's for the bands, the people that are booking shows, filming shows, whatever it is, that like run down that and really like make some movement over a year's time. And like I think you're totally right. I think that like when I was getting into this, like small towns in Manitoba, Canada would have like 200-person shows, and people would be going off and going nuts, and obviously like it like now it's like there's no hardcore shows that happen in those towns, and it's one of those things, like as a bigger band like yourself, it's like, okay, well, like we have to financially like balance a lot of these things. Some bands might want to go play smaller towns because, you know, the supply and demand isn't there. So maybe a ton of kids will come out, and maybe it won't be the craziest mosh evening, but maybe a bunch of people will buy shit and just be
Yeah,
appreciative that you came through. But it is
totally.
it is strange how I think you're dead on as far as like they're, if not us, then who? And that's something that I applied to myself. Like, it was the reason that I started filming hardcore shows. I was like, no one is doing this, so if no one's going to continue doing this, I'm going to start. And then that's just blossomed into something like totally bigger. And
Right.
it's such a weird thing where I'm like constantly thinking about like, well, if I stop it, is that going to stop dead in its track, and no one else is going to pick up the torch and carry on. So
It's possible for sure. Yeah. I feel like, you never know. Like it could all kind of just collapse at some point, and so yeah, it's really crazy. Like if I feel like we have a responsibility to continue to push things forward, so, and that's how I'll always feel that way. It's been so, most of my life has been, dedicated to being a part of this, and like really like furthering things as much as I can, and just kind of contributing in any way that I can, whether it be anything, whether it be just going to a show, just being a body in the room, or, I've made zines over the years, or just making music and putting out a demo or something, or
coming on this
booking a show,
podcast, like, yeah.
Yeah, this sort of thing matters. This didn't exist when I was a teenager, but now this is like a new format. This is the digital zine, I guess, where people can say what they want to say and push forward their ideas and talk about their local scene, maybe mention a band. Cause back when you do a zine, your local zine, you would do like a scene report, and you would write about the new bands that are coming out and who has a demo out and how you can get in touch with them and this and that, so this has I still love that. I still love the print version of all this, and I love that people still do zines, but this also is great too, because it's just you can say a lot more and reach a lot more people, whatever. But
it's funny that you bring up a scene report, and this wasn't like, Adam should have definitely done this in a physical manifestation, but when I was going to shows in Winnipeg, a good friend of mine, Adam Dyson, fronts this band called Withdrawal. He would do these mosh reports, and so like at the end of every show, it would be like on our Facebook group, it would just be like, so-and-so had the best mosh, so-and-so had the worst style. And a lot of it was just like shitting on like a lot of his friends. But, he would like talk about certain, local bands, like, hey, that was the best, penalty set that I've ever seen. So I always like, it was such a weird thing, because I would get home at like 11:30. I would load all my gear in if I was playing. And if I just went, I started backing up the footage, and I would wait patiently on Facebook for that mosh report. And it was such a part, and it was such like a part of, a part of that experience ultimately, like going to the show, seeing these people, and getting to have the play-by-play. Kind of like Sports Center, like, if you missed the show, you can at least watch the highlights.
Yeah. Well, if it exists, if it's digitally out there, in the digital universe on Facebook, you can compile it and make a little like history of all the shows that have happened.
Yeah,
how people are moshing.
Yeah, I'll send this clip to Adam and be like, hey, if Martine from Terror thinks it's a good idea, you should probably do it. You were just talking about like appreciating from like smaller scenes to like larger scenes like LA. So I'm going to use that as a little bit of a segue into the next thing I wanted to talk about. So the first time I saw Terror was when you guys did like, I call it like the Western Canada Weekend Warrior triple threat. So it's when you guys came up and did Vancouver, Edmonton, and Calgary.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
all thanks to JFK, John F. Kennedy.
Mad shout out to him.
He's incredible.
I want to give a little bit of context, because I think that there was a couple things on that got not like mixed up, but I think any of my friends in Western Canada that listen to this episode, like not like set the record straight, but at least like tell my side of it. So I randomly got a message from JFK, and I had, you know, this is like the very first year that I started Scoped Exposure. I was like kind of just, you know, again, just like filming shows, like kind of just giving back to my community, not really trying to do anything massive or ambitious, just kind of like doing my part. And then John said that, you know, hey, we're doing these fly-ins with Terror. How do you feel about filming it? And I was like, yo, like that sounds amazing. And then he's like, yeah, we're doing Edmonton and Calgary back-to-back nights. And then I found out like you guys added the Vancouver one. And he was like, yeah, like if you want to like, you know, like it's a Terror event, but like if you want to throw like, you know, Scoped Exposure, you know, whatever on it, I'm like, yo, this is crazy. So I kind of unofficially followed you guys and I filmed all those shows and, you know, uploaded the sets. And, you know, not only was that such like a special thing for Western Canada as a whole, like to kind of have those all in one go and like anyone who was crazy enough like myself to like hit all of those, but it was also like really inspiring for me to be like, oh, okay, like this is what, you know, anything that like Scoped can do something of that scale where it's like we can, you know, it just got my brain turning with like bringing bands and doing literally that same run that you guys did, and just doing that because, you know, like seeing you guys like kind of play the same set back to back to back, like seeing how different people would react to Stick Tight in Calgary versus Vancouver and Edmonton and just all the little intricacies. So yeah, maybe you can share that from your end, like how that came into the cards for you guys and how you wanted to, you know, because at the time it had been a while since Terror had played anywhere in Western Canada as well.
Yeah, that was like the main thing. It was just that we hadn't been there in a while, and like Canada is a place that we've kind of gone to a lot over the years of me being in the band. You know, I've been in the band now for about 16 years or something.
Mm-hmm.
So there was like even a few years the band existed before without me, and they were already going up to Canada and doing a lot of shows there. And, you know, just from all of our experiences, all the different band members of, you know, playing in Canada with other bands and playing with Canadian bands in other places and stuff, we kind of had this like good network of people throughout, you know, from throughout the country, like east to west, like even as far as, where was Risky Business from? All the way on the east, like some like weird little island or something like that.
Oh, like, you know, PEI or something. I'll
yeah, what is it? Prince Edward? It's something like that. Yeah. So it was like, yeah. So just, you know, there was always those cities throughout the country that we would. I mean, we've done those cross Canada tours a lot, where you end up doing some big, really, really long drives, and you know, from like Winnipeg to whatever, like Thunder Bay or something like that, you know. So we've played all these crazy places, but then it just kind of got harder and harder, just because like what we were saying, you know, it was maybe it would be something as simple as like, oh, there's no bands in that place anymore to put, no local bands, or the venue shut down there. And in a small place, if one venue shuts down, it's like, what, you know, you got to try to find a new one. So I think it just kind of like sort of started dwindling, and it was getting harder to go all the way across. And so JFK was a person that we always kept in touch with, and him and Scott spoke a lot. And I think they just figured out like, hey, it's like, let's come back, and I know we can't do the whole thing, but we can make it work with these 3 shows. It was probably John's idea of like, yeah, we can like financially make it work for everyone if we fly in, do this and that. And then, so he just kind of, from my end of things, it seemed like he just kind of made it happen. And he came with us to all the shows and acted crazy and stuff. I've seen that dude's booked shows for us that we play his shows, and then he gets kicked out of his own show for being like too crazy, getting a little too drunk and like being wild, stage diving, getting kicked out. But he came all those shows. He like, you know, basically just takes care of all accommodations and stuff, and just made it all happen. And I feel like that was the last time how long ago was that? Maybe
that was
2018. Years ago?
Yeah. So we're coming up on 4 years ish. Give or take pandemic times, but
Right. Yeah. So I know that we you know, Montreal, we play there, I think a little more often, just because it's a lot easier to get there. You know, Montreal and Toronto, you just shoot up from the US like super quick, and Vancouver's the same, but Calgary and Edmonton, it's like a little harder, to just kind of get up there
a bit more of a
play.
commitment.
Yeah. So it's just just from playing there so much over the years and having that relationship with John and just having the desire to want to go back, it just all kind of worked out, and it was great. It can be a little crazy doing those. It seems like all fun, and I'm not complaining by any means, but it's not all just fun, when you got to fly everywhere, fly to every show. It gets it's like a hassle, especially when you're trying to cheat the system all the time. You got like bags of merch that you're not trying to pay that fucking $1,000 extra bag fee, and then everyone has guitars and stuff like that, and you're got no sleep, and you're dragging ass to the airport and just waiting in lines the whole time, and all that kind of craziness. But it's worth it for sure. Yeah. So we're like lucky to be able to do those kind of things, and lucky to have people that are willing to make it happen, and that, and then the people that come to the show to make it all worth it. So it was a good experience for us.
Yeah. And like, it's funny because that, like how we kind of captured those, I think it was a funny way where, not my entire team could like travel with me to do this. Cause it was like literally like, well, like, like John was like, you can film the Calgary show, but I was like, no, if my little logo is on all these posters, I want to be there and capture, the 3 of 3. So I kind of liked that we captured them in like different varying degrees of production. So like the Vancouver one, it was just me and my camera, just like whip panning to no end. Edmonton, we had like a couple, like we had a multicam kind of setup, and then Calgary was like multicam and professional audio and the whole 9 yards for it. So
Calgary, am I mistaken? Or was Calgary kind of like a festival?
No, not.
Or was it someone's last show or something? Was it a band's last show? I might be thinking of a different Calgary show, but
yeah, like all the bands that had played that still played shows after that. So
I think it was like Stepping Stone, right?
Yeah, it was Backbite from Vancouver, Stepping Stone from Regina, and Spirit of Vengeance was like another side project band from Stepping Stone, and then
from the singer of Stepping Stone's other band. Right?
Nathan was doing vocals in that band. But like it was funny because when John approached me like, hey, like this is what we have going on, like I love what you do with Scoped, which is crazy to think, like, because we were in our infancy at that point. And he was just like, yeah, like if you want to help me pick bands. So like for me, I'm always obsessed with like the Western Canada representation. So like for all of those shows, I was like, let's, have this Calgary band play Edmonton, or have, the boys from Vancouver come out to play Calgary. So like
that's important.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I really, like I said, like I think it inspired me for like, because when we did our 2-year anniversary, like I think I had reached out to John to like if he wanted to be involved, but like I think at that point he was like, yeah, I'm like taking a step back, and if you need a hand or whatever. But now like, we've only been able to do a proper like show anniversary, I guess like twice, if you want to call it that. Like the second one we had Dare and No Right from California like kind of headline with one another. Yeah. And then, like the 3-year we had plans, which fell through because of COVID. But again, like to end the whole ramble on my end, it was just that whole idea of like being able to bring up a big influential band in the hardcore space and get to hit all the major Western Canada pockets, like is something that like I really appreciate of you guys. And just it's still crazy to think that entire weekend and how fast it went by, and how all the little intricacies that happened.
I totally thank you for that, and thank you for doing what you did, and always thank you to John for keeping us in mind. We've had a long-standing relationship with him, so I just would love, now that kind of everyone's future vision is shifting back into what we're used to. It's like I was starting to feel like I was almost getting used to just not playing and not doing anything, just being stuck at home. But as of this past week or so, everyone's starting to kind of really focus on playing again. So I feel like now we're able to get in a headspace to start thinking about coming back to Canada. It'll probably be a little longer till we're able to come to Canada. I don't really know how, how the border's working right now, but
Right. Yeah.
yeah, at least by next year or something like that, I would love to do something where we actually get to go across Canada again and like go to the places. It's like, it's crazy. Like I've played in Regina multiple times,
Right.
and going to Winnipeg and and then always Edmonton and Calgary. And what's between Vancouver and then the Edmonton, Calgary?
Kelowna,
Is
you're
there-
probably thinking about.
I don't know if I've ever played there. There's not like another major city that's like on the way. Or would you if you drove from Vancouver to?
Oh, are you thinking of
to,
Saskatoon maybe in
Yeah,
Saskatchewan?
there you go.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like on the way, right? Yeah.
That's in between Regina and Edmonton. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So yeah, Saskatoon, played there multiple times, and yeah. So I don't even know what those scenes are like right now, if they're around or if like a show would make sense there in these days. But yeah, it would be cool to get a chance to do it all again, and go back.
Well, you guys are well connected, but like, the minute that becomes an idea and, like I would love to, do round 2 of Terror in Western Canada, filming every set.
And, I'd love to come back with like bands that I play with that haven't had the chance to go there, like someone like God's Hate or something like that,
Dude, God's Hate in Calgary, Edmonton would be fucking crazy. I've had conversation with friends of mine that would be like, yeah, like when will that happen? Funny enough, I remember the fest that happens here in Calgary called Wild Rose. The first year,
Wild Rose,
the first year, because it went through a couple of name changes, but the first year was called Wild Rose in 2018. So this was the year that you guys came through. I remember when the lineup got announced and there was like a show in Calgary that I went to, and people were like looking at the lineup. Everyone's like, like talking silently amongst one another, like, oh yeah, this band's sick, this band's sick. And I heard so many times that night that people thought Hands of God was God's Hate. And they were kind of like, oh, that's not, and they were kind of disappointed, but like it's crazy hearing that and saying that now, because like Hands of God is like one of the, like, in my opinion, like as far as like newcomer bands in California, like very, very hyped right now. So like it's kind of funny that like it was probably like God's Hate was up here and like Hands of God is like this new band, but now like the needle is like a little bit higher as well.
Yeah, they're great. I mean, they haven't played in a while. Well, no one's played in a while, but they haven't played in a while, a little longer than a while. But yeah, I hope to see them coming back around. I'm pretty sure they're a part of the whole Drain, Tsunami Gulch. I don't know if I don't think all the members are from up there, but I think some of them are from down here actually. But yeah, I've seen them play down here a few times, and it's always really cool.
Yeah, definitely. Speaking of the Calgary Terror set that I filmed, this is pulling the curtain back a little bit. When I emailed Martine, I was like, okay, I can either make this very like business professional and be like, hey, like this is my podcast, blah, blah, blah. But sometimes I like to roll the dice and spice it up and throw a little curveball here and there. So I was like, hey man, like, do you want to come on my podcast and talk about your signature? And I linked, I linked the to like that moment in the set. When you do that, and it's funny because like again, going back through all the Terror sets that I filmed that weekend, like same spot, on point,
same spot every time.
And like even listening to like It or Not today, like I didn't know that you have a song that is pretty much that line. So this is, we're gonna get a little silly, but like how did that become your signature like non-word like phrase that you would utter?
Well, I mean, I stole it. I mean, it just comes from, well, okay, so there's a YouTube video on this of like a compilation of all of Tom G. Warrior from Celtic Frost, like he's always known for he does a lot of, I don't even know what you would call those things. Like, I guess like little accents or whatever of like
Sure.
oohs and oh, and all those kind of stuff. And he always had some amazing ones. And then, so he had some that kind of sounded like how I do the one that I'll do. But there's another band, there's this it's a black metal band called Ergahol, and they have one. It's like you can tell that they were paying homage to Tanji Warrior. So then on their album, he does one that's like really over the top and aggressive, and then he brings them back. Like, that's a Tanji Warrior thing too. It's like you do the ooh, and then you said, I said ooh, like in case you didn't hear it the first time. So
for those in the back, I said
yeah. So I might be wrong, but I'm pretty sure it was like Celtic Frost originators, and then then I was mimicking Ergahol, mimicking Celtic Frost. Yeah, so
yeah, no,
it just has it just feels good. Sometimes it just feels right, and you're just like, you got to do it there.
Yeah, like I feel like most because you're doing like backup vocals, but you can throw your own like little spin for terror stuff. But I think most people, it is a weird thing in the scene where like some people like gravitate towards like the really short like staccato like ooh, like something like that, like a little bit more like gorilla monkey-esque. Or there's people that like like rest in peace Riley from Power Trip had like the legendary just like ow, just like could kill that. And some people is like this dips more into like the metalcore space, but even just like the blaze and like there's it's a fine line of like adding that into the music without it being like we're relying on that to make this part sick, if that makes sense.
yeah, no, totally. I mean, it's definitely it's a funny thing because you can break it down and deconstruct it all, because there's so many different versions of it in different styles of music, but they're all essentially bringing forth the same effect. Like it's all there for the same reason, and it's like just that emphasis, and it's crazy how much cooler a part can be just by adding that dumb little thing in there, and like everyone has their own way of doing it, and just a go in general, man. Oh, it's like that's like the icing on a cake. It can just like really fire someone up, especially like in a live setting, so
I think like adding those into the actual recordings is like a serious like power move, like to have a go or pick it up or like bust it. Like
come on is a good one too. I always like when people say come on, but busted, it's like busted's just classic. It's like it's perfect. It really is. A good busted is perfect. Yeah.
Do you think that there's any overused or overrated ones?
No, I welcome them all. I think people should do more.
Sure.
Do more and keep it up. Come up with some new ones and see if they stick.
Well, maybe a better question is, what's the dumbest kind of like
the dumbest
like kind of call out or something like that, either in a live setting or you've heard on a record?
Oh man, that's a good question. Shoot. Oh man, I don't know. Nothing comes to mind, but this is one of those things where like I'm gonna be like, oh, I don't know, and then it's gonna hit me like tomorrow. I'm gonna be like, oh wait, there's this one that's so stupid. But,
I'll share one, and maybe that'll like trigger one that comes to mind. You clearly know the Stepping Stone guys from up here. I remember when they played the Calgary Fest, that I played a show with them the day before they drove out. And Nathan was playing baseball out in like the parking lot and took a baseball to the face, and like he doesn't have teeth here anymore.
Oh, so like a nightmare of mine.
So when they played Calgary, there's like this like kind of like lead up part into a breakdown, and Luke, their singer, like points and says, "I want everyone to look like fucking Nathan," and he just smiles with this big gap in his teeth.
Oh my god.
And that has just stuck with me forever.
that's a dangerous request. You just want everyone to get their teeth knocked in. Oh my God. I mean, I'm not, I would have just ran to the back at that point.
Yeah.
Like, no, hell no, I'm not trying to get my teeth knocked out.
I have a dentist appointment tomorrow. I don't want to disappoint anyone.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's definitely a good one.
Yeah. There's been some wild ones that just seem to come up in the moment, but I like the attitude where it's like, no, like let's just bring it all in. Like there's very few limitations or rules of what's sick and what's not.
You're correct.
Since we're on the topic of like vocals and whatnot, I saw in your Discogs that you did a guest vocal spot in a Winds of Plague song.
Oh yeah, two songs actually.
Oh, two songs. Is crazy. Okay.
Yeah, two. One on two different albums, two songs. Yeah.
Because I was like kind of perusing through there. I'm like, oh, okay, like the latest backtrack release, like that makes sense. And then Winds of Plague just seemed like kind of out of nowhere for me. So I was kind of curious on the why behind that one.
Yeah. So yeah, those guys have just kind of been around for a long time, like going to shows and stuff like that. And we ended up touring together, Terror and Winds of Plague, I think more than once. We went to Japan together. I can't remember if I can't remember which came first, the vocals or the tour, but we did Japan together, we did US together, and yeah, they just hit me up one time. They were recording with Matt Hyde. He was like a legendary producer, recorder guy, and just told me to come through the studio, and like they had this idea, and it just kind of happened. Yeah, I went to the studio and they're like, "Yeah, we got this idea. We want to do this track." I feel like they described it like as almost like a rap track or something like that, where that's the vibe they wanted, like a West Coast kind of thing. And so we like wrote some lyrics there in the studio and just kind of went for it, and then ended up filming a video for it also.
Oh, really?
So you know what, man, it's hard to remember. That might have been the second one that I did. I think the first one was, we were on tour and I was like emailing with them, and they were like, here's the song, write some stuff. And I wrote something, and then Nick Jett, our drummer of Terror, he always brings his studio with him, like a mobile studio, just his laptop and some mics,
Yeah.
So we recorded it in the backstage of some venue in the middle of nowhere or whatever. And that wound up on that record. Yeah. And then the second one was like in the studio with them, and there's a video for it. I feel like it's called California. Maybe it was like I know the word California said a lot in the song, but I can't remember if that's what it was called. Yeah. But yeah, so they played a show at this venue, Chain Reaction. And they had like a whole full professional camera crew that filmed the show and played the song a bunch of times. And then we did like different stuff, like just, like a typical music video, singing at the camera, all that kind of dumb stuff. It was, it was fun. It was like, kind of like, it was a little goofy, but I was aware, it's like, it was the way it was on purpose. It was kind of like trying to be
self-aware goofiness gets a pass.
Yeah. Like sometimes you just gotta get outside the box and act a little cocky, so that's what it was. It was just like having fun with it. It was cool.
It reminds me, Brian from Knocked Loose came on, and we were talking about how he did a feature for that band Malevolence from Europe. And and just like when they were shooting the video for it, he was like, "Oh, like, do you want me to do like the scary, like, no smiling?" He's like, "No," like they were like cracking jokes in between takes, and just like it was like really hard to do an entire take in that like badass, like super serious kind of attitude. But like as soon as he was like, "Okay, we could do a take of that, or we can do a take where you can kind of just do whatever," and then he got the edit back. He's like, "Okay, that's probably the coolest I'll ever look, so let's put it in the video."
Oh man, filming a music video is always, it'll never not feel weird, for me at least. It's just always kind of uncomfortable, and like it's a tough tough position to be in. I feel like I never do it quite right, but you know, some people are just naturals at that shit.
Yeah.
Not me.
Going back to the Winds of Plague stuff, yeah, like for me that was just like really cool because like this is like very metal band, and then just out of nowhere you have like very hardcore lyrics. So like, you know, like I know Terror has been a band long enough to like really be strategic of like, we're doing, you know, we're going out with these hardcore bands, but like also we're gonna go out with these metal bands, we're gonna go out with these metalcore bands and like expand, you know, like get in front of new people and learn how to play to those individuals as well. So like I'm kind of curious if all these like metalheads just came out of nowhere being like, hey, I heard you on that track, it sounds awesome, and now I like Terror, or anything like that.
I know. So one time someone like turned me on to YouTube comments, which is like the you know, the worst place on earth. Like people that comment on YouTube videos are like the lowest form.
Yeah.
But it seems like most metal. See, I don't know. I don't know what kind of. I don't know if it's like what kind of metalheads listen to Winds of Plague, because that's like I listen to metal music, a lot of metal and stuff like that. But I'm not. I would never call myself a metalhead. You know,
Sure.
like because I'm just not that person. You know, so I don't really know what type of metal guy is like listening to Winds of Plague, but whatever type they are, they felt that me being on the track was like sacrilegious or something like that. They like kept, they like what is this rap part on the song? And I'm like, damn, rap? It doesn't even sound like. I mean, I guess maybe I just have a flow that happens naturally when I'm like thinking of lyrics or whatever. Maybe to them it comes off as kind of like it's a little too good for them or something. Like I have too much flow. But yeah, I mean, but that's YouTube comments, so it's like who knows who's saying that and if they really feel what they're saying or if they're just trying to like stir up some shit or something. But
for sure.
Yeah, there was, you know, we toured with them multiple times, so there was definitely like crossover, and like, you know, it's like I would get someone here and there, like, you know, who would come up and talk to me and say they saw the video or something like that and thought it was cool and blah blah blah. And you know, I would guess that there's people that came to those shows that we played with them that had no idea who we were, that ended up being like, oh, I like that band, or you know, or vice versa. You know, who knows?
Yeah,
someone
for sure.
So
so speaking of YouTube comments, the top comment for our Terror Calgary set is just ooh, like that. It has an overwhelming amount of likes.
That's amazing. Yeah.
I was like,
I don't know why, but
the correct way to spell that. He was like,
the way that the way I always thought to spell it. I don't know why. I don't know where I saw it spelled that way, but it was always OUGH was like the proper, like if you type that to like a true metalhead, they would know their brain would probably go straight to like, oh, he's talking like Celtic Frost. You know, that's what I feel like. So yeah, you should look at the there's a good compilation on YouTube. It's just like 1 second clips of every one of Tom G Warrior's like just in a row, and you know, all the crazy little accents that he used.
Yeah, I'll have to check that out. A couple other questions for you here, Martine. I'm told through some friends of mine that you have a hand in doing Sound and Fury Fest that happens down in LA. And I feel like, you know, the reason that I reached out to you was like to talk about the bands and some of the other things. And I definitely know that we could have, you know, we could talk another hour or like do an entire podcast dedicated to that. You know, maybe that happens down the line. But I guess I was curious. I wanted to pick your brain as far as like, you know, with the world starting to open up and people are starting to make the claim that like shows are back, whether that might be a worldwide thing or not. You know, Canada is a little behind the ball right now. You know, I'm sure that there are definitely things that you can't say, but I'm kind of curious if there's anything, you know, where you and the rest of the team are like talking about, like what's realistic, what are you trying to do? I saw that you guys announced the Fiddlehead show with
we're due. Right, yeah, and Object of Affection, and I think we're going to add maybe 1 or 2 more bands, but yeah, that's happening in September in LA at a venue called 1720 that is like one of the better venues like around right now that we just really love, and we love all the people there and stuff, and it's just a cool spot, yeah. So yeah, that's the first thing that we're doing. And we're just kind of like, well, we've always done these like shows that, Sound and Fury presents. So it's nothing new for us to do this, but
Sure. Yeah.
I don't like, we'll continue doing those. It's not, I didn't want people to think that it was only because like Sound and Fury didn't happen 2020 that was like, we might do more stuff this year, for sure, more things that we present and stuff. But as far as like a full blown, weekend festival thing, we really don't know, because it's just like, we don't want to like get too deep into something and then have it kind of fall apart. I don't want to, it's like, that would just be a nightmare for us to just, so we, not saying that we won't try to, or that we haven't, it's just like, because there was never a point that we stopped discussing opportunities. It's like,
definitely
Sean Riley, who I do the festival with, is like one of my best friends, and we hang out almost every single weekend, so the discussion of Sound and Fury related things is like constant, text messaging, talking in person and stuff, just exploring different possibilities. Well, what if this and what if that? And so this entire time we've been like thinking about what can we do.
Right.
And this fiddlehead thing made the most sense to start off with. And I think it's a great place to start, especially with the way things are. It's like, we don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves,
Sure.
So so I mean, we're constantly figuring things out and seeing what we can do, and maybe we'll do something this year, maybe not, but by 2022 we want to do the full scale festival again. And if all things fall the way we hope, it'll happen. I don't want to like catch myself by just being like, 2022 Sound and Fury's back, like right now,
someone's
like,
clipping this and sending it to you.
Like, who knows, because of like, man, when everything happened and everything shut down in the beginning, I was one of those skeptics that was like, no way it's going to be that bad, we'll be back up and running in no time, this and that. And then slowly but surely just kept getting like punched in the face by stuff. So I wound up just kind of being this person that's like, nothing is going to happen until 2023 or something. So it's like, I almost like became fine with I had to make myself become fine with the idea that possibly nothing would happen for a long time, just because like, of how let down I had been in the past year or so, just like, constantly just rolling it over, maybe this month, maybe next month, maybe that time period of like deciding whether or not we were going to have to postpone was like gut wrenching for us. We're just like, man, we're really going to have to do this. We had the venue locked in, we had bands booked, we had what we thought was like a really great thing about to happen, and to be told that we just couldn't do it was crazy. So we're just kind of like recovering from that, and we're just taking it slow. We don't want to jump the gun on anything, so.
It's I think like it was one thing of I knew as like some rumors of shows were coming back at the beginning of this year. I knew that whatever the first thing was, whether that's the LA show, the Madball show that happened in New York, whatever the first thing ever was, like whether it was the right time or not, it was going to get criticism of multiple levels, just because it's the first thing. It's the first thing on the chopping block, right? So now it's like, now I think people are like open to that idea. Like vaccination rollouts are like starting to, take its course. But I think the same mindset applies. Like some people are like, I want to do this fest, but I don't know if I actually want to be the very first festival. Because again, it's that, unknown waters of like, like it's one thing to have like 100-person little show with 3 bands, but like it's another to have people traveling from all over the world to like, to go to something because they've been not able to do that for so long.
Right. And that's something that's, for sure on our minds. We think about all aspects of the situation possibly happening. But I feel like for us, it's less about, like worrying about not like the criticism is something we do think about. Like I said, we think about everything, but it's not like what motivates us. It's more so I think about logistics. It's like, say a festival did happen, and judging by how the festival has gone in the years past, which is amazing, we have a lot of people that come in from other countries, like
100%.
all over the world are flying in. So I'm more so what's motivating us is like, will people be able to come? Not
Sure.
is someone going to feel a certain way about a lot of people being in one place and that sort of thing. It's more so like, damn, like say we booked a festival, like, I don't know. I don't even know what travel restrictions are like right now. You hear so many different things. And if you watch the news and then you read stuff and people tell you things, and it's like, you hear one person might say the borders are closed and no one can go anywhere. And then the next person's like, well, that's not true. It's this and that. So it's like, I guess we just kind of have to there's just so many factors that we have to kind of think about with something like that, with like an international thing, and we don't want to, I just want it to be awesome. We want it to be great for everyone. We want a good experience and a good vibe. And so it's just a lot to think about right now and figure out. We just got to figure out, all right, how do we do this? And if we do it, what's the right way to do it, and blah, blah, blah. So, like I said, we're ready. And man, we can if somehow, some way we just decided we're going to do something next week, like we could make it happen for sure. It's just like, we're ready for literally anything to happen, and we can make it happen because the team that we want, we're serious about this, and we can make things work. So, and we want it to work. So we're just like ready and waiting to enact motion and make something happen. It's just a matter of when.
And I just want to applaud you for the attitude of recognizing that like people are coming from Korea, like the UK, like Indonesia, like all, like a mutual friend of ours, Jessa, who's gone down to Sound and Fury multiple times. When we were chatting just the other day, she was mentioning like all of the like the last time she was there, just by coincidence, all of the international hardcore homies were all just hanging out. It's like, this person's from Switzerland, this person's from here. So like it's crazy that like like people will make, you guys are at like such a level that someone's like, I'm traveling to literally the other side of this planet to go to LA and see a bunch of cool hardcore bands all in a weekend's time.
It really is like a humbling thing, for someone to care that much about something that you put so much effort and so much intention into, and then have them not only like, just the amount of effort they have to put in to make a trip like that happen is like very high level. So it's crazy to see them do that, but then also that they enjoy it. They come here and they have an amazing experience, and they talk about it, and it's like a memory that they made that is long lasting, and just like have a good experience and see amazing bands. And so it's really cool. And we're very aware of our international reach of, people coming here, and it's important. It means a lot to us.
Is there either a story or like one person who has come to the fest from like distances that you couldn't even fathom, that has like kind of stuck with you and is almost like a constant reminder of like, hey, this shit applies to not just my friends in California. This applies to everyone.
Well, I mean, like when people, so like we booked a band from Japan called Loyal to the Grave.
Yes.
And they like, I've known them for a long time from going to Japan and playing shows there with Terror.
Sure.
And we will play shows with Loyal to the Grave. They're from Tokyo, and like Koba, who sings in the band, is someone who helps out with us touring over there and that sort of thing. And just him coming and his band being able to play, and like watching him be very happy about people in the US knowing his band and singing the words and doing whatever, like just how happy those guys were with that situation. And I mean, flying from Tokyo to LA is one of the craziest flights ever. I mean, it's like I don't know, like 18 hours or something like that. It's just like, it's unbearable, you know. So for them to just like sit on a plane for that long, come here and
play for 18 minutes.
yeah, you know, and just like, but and just be so thankful and so happy for it. And like me finally being able to return the favor of them always, it's always me in Tokyo and them accommodating us and taking us to places and doing this and doing that for us. And then being able to finally return the favor to them and have them in the US and just have them have such an amazing time. And yeah, it's just very, very fulfilling for me to see that happen, you know?
Yeah.
And yeah, man, it's just crazy. Like having friends from Costa Rica come here, you know, and like help us out, you know, get there early and just be like, hey, you guys need help. What can we do? And it's like, actually, yes, we do need help because we're dying here. I've been up for 24 hours, like trying to make things happen. Can you help me lift this entire back line up 3 flights of stairs and grab a giant base cab? And, you know, and them just be willing and ready to do it just because like they're so thankful to be there for the weekend.
Yeah.
And, you know, be a part of something. Yeah. So yeah, anytime someone mentions, you know, oh, I'm so-and-so from this place, I'm just like, man, even if it's just like a state over, it's just cool to traveling for shows, man. It's just it's a crazy thing, you know. I think back to when when I was a kid and we used to do that, and it just seemed, I don't know, it seemed almost impossible to get to certain places, you know, because you would drive. Yeah, I remember the one time we drove to Texas just for a show, and to us that was mind blowing. You know, drive 16 hours or something to another state, and then once you start going all around and you fly overseas and this and that, it's just like, it's really crazy.
Yeah,
just I'll never like get. I don't know how to explain that. You know, it's just I'm just always aware of how amazing it truly is to be able to do something like that, like traveling around for this sort of thing, and all of us everywhere having this one connection, which is, you know, hardcore music. And here we are, like,
yeah,
you know, yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, absolutely. Maybe one of the last questions I can ask about the fest. I think when, you know, ironically enough, like the pandemic kind of started right around festival season. Like I think Wild Rose, the Rumble in Chicago, and Promcore were like back to back weekends, and like that kind of it was at that time where it was like, do we have to? And then it was like, oh, we have to. So like,
yeah, we actually have to. Yeah.
And then it was like, again, like, oh, it'll be ready by or this will blow over by Sound and Fury, or blow over by This Is Hardcore. And then, it was even crazier. Just like, oh, I guess FYA, which happened in 2020, I guess it won't happen in 2021. But all that being said, I think something that I was saying, or at least predicting, was that, you know, again, this was the thought that, oh yeah, next year things will be back in motion. Any of the lineups that weren't realized in a 2020 landscape, you know, like some of those things might be not like honored, but like, oh, like we still want to make that happen. We still want to give that band that debut. And I think some of that, I guess that prediction, I'm not sure if I'm like bang on or like, or maybe I'm a little incorrect, because I think the bands that at least Promcore has been putting out, I'm like, oh, they weren't on that. So I guess like I wanted to hear kind of from the horse's mouth, like, you know, I'm sure that's something that you've discussed, like, do we do the exact same lineup or do we start from scratch? Because like, you know, some bands might not be around anymore. Some, you know, put out way better records. Yeah.
Yeah. We, like, when we look back at the 2020 lineup, we're like, damn, we're 100% happy with that. And it would be cool to just see the exact lineup happen when it does happen again. But like you said, we really can't. I don't know if I don't know if all those bands are going to be able to at that time. You know, who knows? By the time it's like, we won't be able to tell until we have an actual confirmed definite date, like it's happening here.
Yeah.
Because what's happening right now with all these possibilities of shows happening again, everyone is like getting booked up like crazy. And even something as simple as like trying to find a venue right now, venues that normally would have like maybe 1 or 2 holds on them on a Tuesday night now have like 15 holds on them, in the middle of the week and stuff like that, so it's just like kind of like right now is a bad time to try to gauge what's going to happen, just because everyone's kind of going crazy and scrambling. We got to play, we got to do this. So, once we're kind of just, we're taking it easy, we're not trying to like scramble and grab everyone up and do this and that. I feel that, people know that Sound and Fury is a summer thing, and generally when it happens. And I think that, if people want to be there and whoever wants to play, they'll be ready and willing to play if they want to play, and if that works out, then beautiful. And if not, it's like totally understandable that, they have prior engagements or whatever, or they, like you said, like a band broke up. I feel like a lot of bands might have broken up over this year and a half of people just either getting comfortable, not having to be on tour anymore, or just like getting a new job, or having a child or something, like you never know. So I mean, to answer, we're definitely like interested in all the bands that, because we tried to book them for a reason. We wanted them to play. So by that time, we would love for them to play again, but we'll just have to see what happens.
Yeah, time is your ally right now, as far as like, okay, like, looking ahead into the 2022, it's like, it's not like, oh, this is happening in 3 months and like, I think, as much as it like everyone's been just like sitting at home, like kind of anticipating that, like, I just want to get back out there. It is kind of an overwhelming time right now, as far as like the amount of things that are just like popping up. Like I don't know if you feel this way, but I almost feel like overwhelmed that it's like, okay, here's a crazy festival announcement, then I scroll down and then it's a crazier like tour package that getting like, there's just like so much that's coming all at once. Like it's not like I'm trying to keep up with every single thing. It's just like my feed is, it feels weird to see so much of that, but it's also like, well, should I try and fly out for a date for that? So yeah, it's just a lot, but hopefully things will,
it's definitely a lot.
Like you said, like, booking a venue won't be as like tough to do, just because of the supply and demand, and things will level out a little bit. That's the hope, at least.
Yeah, I mean, I'm confident that things will eventually level out. It makes sense that everything is kind of going crazy right now. And I feel like almost every day multiple US tours are announced, and or the big festival here, big festival there. And I notice a lot of these big festivals that I've seen announced kind of have the same lineup. It seems like a lot of the same bands are playing a lot of these big festivals, and I guess I don't really know what the dates are, though. Maybe they're staggered across the I didn't even really pay attention if that stuff was like even this year or next year or whatever. I have seen things announced for 2022 already. People, stuff has already been announced for them. So there's a lot happening right now, and it is overwhelming. It's nice to see. I feel like it makes people feel better about what we all went through the last year and a half or however long it was. But it's cool to see that things are happening, and it's cool to be a part of things that are about to happen too. So
absolutely. There's already 2 it's funny, I was saying on this podcast multiple times, like, I would like to go to one hardcore show this year. Like, I went to a couple before the pandemic hit, but I would like to go to one. Like, if that's December 30th, like, by all means, let's go. But now there's like 2 different festivals that are offering like, hey, like, do you want to come and fly it out? And I'm just like, oh, I was fine with one, but now it's like, hey, do you want to come out for multiple days and film multiple bands?
In the US or in Canada?
In the US, not in Canada.
In the US.
So
okay, cool.
It's playing the game of not the border being closed per se. Can I let my dog out real quick? He's just been sitting here crying here.
Of course,
30 seconds.
Poor guy.
Okay,
gotta go to the bathroom. Slowly.
It's like guaranteed to interrupt the podcast at some point.
Yeah.
But it's all been in the States, so it's me trying to figure out like getting fully vaccinated, and hopefully that being the deciding factor whether I would need to do some kind of necessary government mandated like quarantine at like, because right now I think it's like if you go down you have to go to like a government approved hotel, so like that's an insane amount of money to spend 3 nights there when I could just come home and it would probably be fine.
Right.
So that's why I'm kind of playing the waiting game for that. But I will say there's one potentially in California, so we might be crossing paths sooner than later.
Cool. Yeah. I mean, yeah, I know that. Yeah, so I know if you get. So my girlfriend is coming here to LA in a couple of days. She lives up in Montreal, and if she gets vaccinated, fully vaccinated, because she already has one shot, and I know that if she comes here and gets the other, then when you go back, if you can prove that you're fully vaccinated, then you don't have to do the government mandated quarantine of spending thousands of dollars to stay in some hotel that they approved of or whatever. So it's just a matter of getting that shot, I guess.
Well, Martin, this has been a really, really great chat. I feel like I could talk to you for 2 more hours, but I appreciate all the time that you've given me, and maybe we can do it again sometime.
For sure.
The last question that I asked all my guests on the podcast is a favorite mosh story that they would like to share. So a mosh story could literally be some crazy move or style that you saw, some crazy like hit that you took, something that happened at a terror show or any other show of the bands that you're a part of. Whatever's the first thing to your mind is kind of how we end things here.
Okay. So the first story that came to mind is a cool one. It's a kind of a legendary story because of where it happened and who it happened with. So the first US tour that I ever went on in 2004, full US tour, went to Canada and everything also. It was with me and my brother have a band called DONNYBROOK. And we did a full US. And we played at CBGB's, which was crazy that we got, we got to play there. Like it was like, they closed shortly after we played there. And so it was a matinee show, it was a decent show. It was just cool to be there for the first time or whatever. And so we're setting up, getting ready to play. And Jorge, the singer of Marauder, came into the venue, and we're like, oh shit, that's cool that he's here. He's going to watch us play. And he's like standing there, like waiting for us to start. And he takes his shirt off and kind of ties it around his head, like a turban type of thing, like a do-rag. And as soon as we started playing, he started like, and he's older than me, he was a grown older man at this point. And he was like, he like turned into a monster and was just like doing moves that looked like out of a karate movie. He's like flipping off the stage and spinning around and doing all these wild karate kicks and stuff. And we were just kind of like blown away, like, wow, this dude is just like really about it right now. And it was just cool to have that kind of support from someone like that, from a band that we grew up listening to, and just really having him go wild for us. It was like burned into our mind. We were like, damn, that was crazy. And he offered us a place to stay that night. We ended up staying at his place, which was wild too.
Sick.
It was a cool story. CBGB's, Jorge Marauder, moshing like an animal.
Just goes to show that mosh retirement is just people that are just too lazy to mosh.
That's definitely me.
Well, Martin, again, this has been super great. All your links and band shit will be in the description and the show notes. But if there's anyone you want to plug, shout out, anything you want to send the people off with, the floor is yours for whatever you got.
Yeah, definitely want to shout out JFK one more time.
Hell
John F. Kennedy.
Definitely.
Hope to see him soon. Hope to come back to Canada soon. And I just urge everyone to pay attention to Sound and Fury, so you can see what we got going on. I don't know, hit up the Instagram, which most people use, Sound and Fury Fest. And Terror's got stuff coming up very, very soon that we're going to be announcing in the near future, some really cool shit. So Yeah,
Is
just
the
yeah,
first
just check the links.
Yeah, check the links. Definitely.
Yeah,
Is
yeah.
I was gonna ask, is the first terror show back the one in Nashville?
So I'm
Or
I
is there something that
you
is
know what?
coming
I'm not
back?
actually, honestly, I'm not sure. I know that the ones that are announced is the Nashville show, and then the day after is that the Furnace Fest
Yes.
in
Mhm.
Alabama.
Mhm.
But stuff surrounding that, I can't confirm that anything is like 100. It's like I said, it's just kind of a weird place right now where it's like venues are hard to find, and
Yes.
it's just
Mhm.
still like rocky ground trying to book other shows, and I don't know if people are ready and willing to book full. I don't know.
Yeah.
So it's just like at this point with terror, it's like we can't say anything is happening for sure until it's like 100%
100%. Yeah.
confirmed, announced type of thing, because who knows what's going to happen. It's
Yeah.
like everything is, it's also kind of shaky. Yeah. So those two shows are for sure out there and announced and happening. Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
So,
like Martine said, hit the links, keep up to date.
yeah.
Thank you again for
Smash the
coming on the
link.
podcast, my guy. And yeah,
Yeah.
I'm stoked for all the future stuff that's coming down the pipe for you.
Yeah. Hell yeah. Thank you so much.